In the summer of 2016, I had just turned 26 years old. I was determined, very spiritual, and I was frustrated. I thought that I should have had so many things figured out. I should have had so many things achieved. I thought, I've been through a lot now, and now is when I prove to the world that I had overcome. Now is time when I show off my youth and all the things that I could accomplish despite what my circumstances had been. I had had plans for art world domination, but I found myself with a scholarship and a grant, so I chose to apply for a study abroad class in France. I wasn't expecting to get in, but I did, and I left the country believing that I was invincible, untouchable. I had been through hell already, and there was nothing else that would be able to shake me. I wasn't prepared to have to run for my life. I was also not prepared for how this experience would proceed to open up every trauma I had ever had and make me feel every feeling I'd ever buried. I became a raw, open wound with every nerve exposed. I couldn't hide what I felt from anyone, and when I tried, it would all come pouring out. In every moment of my stay in Nice, I carried a real terror, a constant and overpowering fear that would cling to me for the next 2 years. I thought that since I had overcome my childhood sexual abuse, my adolescent beatings, my sexual assault experiences as an adult, that I knew fear. But this was something altogether different. This was a feeling of the end, a crisis of faith, an existential crisis. I started to believe that I had been born to simply suffer and experience only catastrophic things, that there was no running from this fate, and I would have to somehow come to face it. The pain that came from this idea was so deep. I had no idea how to cope. I tried to speak to counselors, but our conversations were echoed sounds inside of empty cans. People would try to relate, try to give advice, try to give recommendations, but I couldn't connect to any of it. I felt absolutely alone. I didn't understand why I had survived. I was constantly crushed with the guilt. Every move I made and word I spoke felt undeserving. I couldn't breathe underneath the weight of it. I was there and I survived, but for what? And if none of these other horrible things that had happened in my life were enough, what would be? Was there more to come? It became a puzzle with no answer, but I just wanted to know so badly, why me? None of the spirituality I had practiced prepared me for the impact of this question. I practiced this from a very early age. It was the only way I knew how to live. Even though I had survived, this event somehow proved that there was no pattern, no being connected to the universe, no one looking out for me in the cosmic sense of things. I was alone, and I had always been alone. My fear grew into anger. I tested fate and set myself to teeter on the very edge of death. At that edge, I was humbled, incapacitated, and recognized value in everything I saw and felt but myself. I tried to keep pressing on toward my dreams and goals. I tried to keep up fighting for myself and my work, but I wasn't myself enough to believe in who I was, or to keep up the fight meant for my dream to become a reality. I was dying, and I kept asking for help, but I didn't know how to accept it for a self that I no longer was. For someone else entirely, someone not even I could recognize. You may flip through this work haphazardly, without putting yourself inside of the moment, inside the colors I chose, the environment I decided to try to find my peace in, the words I put down. It's what most people do when they're not sure what to make of what's in front of them. It's what most people have done when I've shown them these drawings. What they didn't understand was that this is a huge part of what has saved me. Not just during this particular trauma, but my entire life. Drawing, painting, writing, making things. It took me away from the pain of where I was. It helped me find a way to witness a world that I created and brought into reality. It reminded me that this world that I wanted wasn't impossible, and it was closer than it seemed. It allowed me a language that could articulate the most painful moments and feelings in my life in a way that words never could, in a way that could speak to someone else without them. And if when you read these words or see this art, you feel something inside of you stir, feel where it takes you, and if it takes you too far into the brink of madness, where I'm far too familiar, find help. Reach out to people who love you and tell them the entire story. not just the most digestible parts, but the whole story. Fight for yourself, for your peace of mind, for your mind period, so that you can find the ways that keep you living in life, not just existing, not just surviving, not just pretending to live. I pray that you find that peace and that this series can inspire you to create something that helps remind you to come back when you're too far in the madness. This is just the beginning. The wound is open.